want to, if we can, kind of recap of what we've been looking at. This is a live picture here from Lake Charles. And most of you are probably pretty familiar. If you look to the right, you can see that's the I-10 bridge. Also on the right, you're seeing, I believe that's the Isle of Capri Casino. It's not supposed to be there. It's actually supposed to be a little bit farther off toward the left. And this appears to be stuck under the I-10 bridge. And that I-10 bridge, you know, is very old. We've had a lot of reports on that bridge. It's been noted by national folks that that's one of those bridges that it will be in dire need of repair. And now you got to look at it here where you actually have a riverboat casino that's broken loose and appears it is crashed into that. Now, the other thing that you'll probably notice is the smoke that's coming back from behind the buildings that you're seeing there on the left. Kind of unconfirmed, but confirmed. We talked to a police juror over in Acadia, or rather over in Calcasieu Parish, and we do have reports that there is a possible chlorine release and a fire there. There is a shelter in place that's in effect, we believe, for Westlake and as well as Moss Bluff. And now Moss Bluff is kind of north of Lake Charles there. Westlake is right there adjacent to where you're going to see the smoke. That's what you see there on the other side of the Calcasieu River. But because the wind speeds are so strong, it's carrying a lot of this smoke all the way over toward Moss Bluff. And a shelter in place means you want to close all your windows, you want to stay inside, do not go outside. Of course, you're going to turn your air conditioner off, but I'm probably willing to believe that nobody has air conditioning since there's no electricity over there right now because of Hurricane Laura going through. And that's an unfortunate thing because it is very sticky out there, and you know, the only thing you got going for you is a decent breeze. But this is a time that if you live over in Westlake or Moss Bluff, you are going to want to stay inside. I know it's going to be very stuffy, but you're going to have to close those windows because there's a possibility that that release could be hazardous. So we're working to get more information on what's happening over there. Chris Welty has been reporting live, and we're going to check with him in a little bit. Daniel, you had something?
Yeah, I pulled up the winds here just to show it. Now we obviously do not have we obviously don't have wind data from Lake Charles, Cameron, or Abbeville. Those sensors have all gone down, but if you take a look at the winds around it, DeRidder's out of the southwest about 20 miles an hour, Jennings out of the southwest about 12. It can give you an idea of which way the wind is going to be blowing, and then if you just take a look at that image there, you can kind of see that that's the general direction. Those flags on the sailboat, those are all blowing pretty hefty too. So thinking about where the I-10 bridge is as it crosses, let's pull up here one of the radar images, because then we can kind of zoom in and we can get an idea roughly of where that's going to be, and then kind of figure out from there the way the winds are going to be blowing. So bear with me as I kind of pull this up here. This is going to be the I-10 bridge coming out of Lake Charles. So that is it, Rose or Westlake. So there we go. And then you add on top of that the direction of the winds and the which way that those are going to be blowing as well, and those are going to be coming out of the southwest in this general direction. And you can kind of see that kind of panning out there. Here's the bridge right here, the Lake Charles Bridge. So where Chris is set up, he's going to be on the eastern side of this, looking towards Westlake. And now you've got winds out of the southwest. 12 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour. We'll call it somewhere between 10 and 20 miles an hour. Again, we've got all those sensors that we would pick that information up. Those were all down, obviously, after last night. But we'll call it somewhere between 10 and 20 miles an hour, pushing that stuff towards the southwest. So if you've got a chemical plant that's kind of on fire around the Westlake area, which is right around here, and then some of those fumes being blown in that general direction, excuse kind of a shaky hand here, then you kind of get the sense of where some of those fumes are going to be headed. And there's no telling what's being blown in there. And just taking a look here, it looks like they're getting some tugboats in there now that are going to try and move the casino there from underneath the bridge. And I mean, I guess this just kind of sums it all up on the image that you're looking at right now.
Daniel, I've seen that tugboat or that barge there kind of go back and forth a little bit, so I don't know exactly what's going on, but you said it right there. I mean, you've got two major news stories in one picture right there. You've got the casino that's stuck under the bridge, which is a news story in itself, all by itself. And then you've got the smoke back behind there from a chemical plant that possibly could have had a chlorine release, and they've got those shelter in places for Westlake as well as Moss Bluff. And as you're pointing there on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that the winds are basically pointing from Westlake right toward Moss Bluff there, just north of Lake Charles. So we'll have to kind of watch it. It's mesmerizing as you're trying to see what's going to happen here if they're going to indeed try to move. I don't even know if a barge, a smaller boat like that would be able to. I know they can move very large loads through the Intracoastal Waterway, up and down the Mississippi River. But with the winds that are out there still and the fact that you've got this stuck under the bridge, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And of course, the backstory with the smoke.
Looking at, and then, and in the foreground of the smoke, you can see that the front of a hotel has been sheared off from a Category 4 hurricane. It has been quite a morning in Southwest Louisiana, to say the least. And just kind of taking a look at the angle of this, and again, we're trying to work on getting all kinds of stuff confirmed right now, but just kind of taking a look at the angle of it, and that boat hasn't moved a whole lot. I wonder if it's kind of jammed itself into the pillars there, and then that's the yeah, because you see that
it is to move the barge, right? I mean, move the casino, because where it's lodged at. I mean, who knows what can happen?
Yeah, and you can see the tugboat there going around and trying to figure it out.
It'll be interesting to see too, because within the last year or two, we had a barge that had broken away and smacked into the Sunshine Bridge there on the Mississippi River, and that bridge was closed for an extended period of time, and I think that's LA 70 that goes across there. And it's not a really highly traveled bridge, but the I-10 is something completely different. If you break this line, you're breaking a major line of an east-west highway that goes from coast to coast. And then you have to think you've got the hurricane damage there in Lake Charles. If they indeed have to shut this down for a while, the only bridge is going to be the 210. I haven't been over there in quite some time, but I know it was under construction for a long time, the 210 around there. And I don't even know if any of that has been completed. But I was kind of joking with Katie. I'm one of those people, and I'm not afraid of bridges. I just don't like this one. And I pretty much take the loop every time I have to go to Sulphur.
You think about the corridor that this is happening in too, with this being shut down. And there's those major oil refineries and stuff, and there's a lot of industrial traffic that kind of travels that kind of travels that corridor. A lot of money tied up in the traffic that goes through that corridor, with the refineries on that side, and then you can see them going back and forth across I-10 and getting out over towards Houston as well. So that's a major thoroughfare. A lot of economics, I imagine, are kind of tied up.
Yeah, the economic impact on there, but something else that you and I have talked about too, the environmental impact. You've got all of these refineries and chemical plants that are around all these bodies of water too, and then probably you did have some storm surge in there. So that's going to be yet another story that may come along down the road. Not just the economic impact, but the environmental impact to those areas around the Lake Charles region. So hopefully we can get more information there over the next hour or so.
I saw a story floating around. I'm trying to find it now. It was buried down there pretty well. It was a reporter for The Advocate who had brought up in his story the amount of refineries and oil leases and oil wells and stuff that are out in that corner that the hurricane went through. And I want to say the count, was very impressive. Like 1,400, I think.
No.
So we'll have to see. And that looks like another plume of
I'm listening to the headset traffic here.
There.
Chris Welty's reporting there's 2 plumes of smoke. We're going to see if we can get out there to Chris Welty. This is kind of new information because we were looking at the 1 plume of smoke earlier. And Chris, we can see behind you there are actually 2. So you're seeing 2 different fires.
Yeah, Dave, we're seeing 2 different fires. We're seeing 2 different fires. I had just gotten into the unit to charge my cell phone, and I was glancing over and I was like, oh my gosh, there's another plume of smoke right here in the distance. So Blake, if we can zoom in over here, the Isle of Capri is in the middle there, and to the left is another fire with some pretty black smoke billowing right there. And then, Blake, if we can pan back over this way, this is the other fire that we're following right now as well, that we're hearing is possibly a chlorine fire right over on the other side of the Isle of Capri. That's why the bridge is shut down. People are being told to shelter in place and to not have their ACs on. And Dave, I heard you made a really good point earlier that people probably don't have AC right now because their power is out in this area. So, but people in Westlake and Moss Bluff, Sulphur, they're being told to shelter in place, and that wind is whipping. So it's really pushing that wind and that smoke around. And once again, we just want to show you two different fires. So we got the one on the right-hand side of the Isle of Capri, and then the other is to the left. So we're unclear what's burning in this second fire. We're going to work to try and get some more information, but of course, you know, first responders are extremely busy assessing the damage and responding to different things right now. So it's a little challenging to get in touch with them, but we're going to monitor social media and continue to make some phone calls to see what we can find out about both of these fires. Live in Lake Charles, Chris Welty, KATC TV3.
Hey, Chris, before we let you go, I'm just curious, how long ago did you notice that second fire? Has it been there long?
You know, Dave, I stepped into the unit for about 5 minutes, and I had plugged my phone in, and I glanced up, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the fire, another fire. We didn't notice that plume of smoke when we pulled up here about, what I guess maybe a half hour ago. It's unclear if this just started or if the smoke just started to intensify, and that's why we've noticed it. But it does appear, let's see, I was looking at some of the traffic. It looked like police may have been letting some people flow, but they're making this loop. A lot of 18-wheelers, they're pulled off of the side of I-10, but we can see one right here. They're making the loop to turn around because the bridge is still closed here in Lake Charles. But a lot of people, they're coming through, they're sightseeing, and right now, of course, emergency officials, if they say if you don't need to be on the road, stay off the road and to shelter in place right now. But once again, we're going to continue to try and make some more phone calls, monitor social media, and find out what exactly is happening with both of these fires here in Lake Charles.